Hey everybody! So episode 5 of Shadowhunters was actually pretty great. It was titled Moo Shu to Go, and I only have a couple of things that I didn't like about it. I was pretty happy with it. At the beginning of the episode, we see Clary telling Jace about what happened with Valentine and the necklace and how he spoke to her through it. And Jace shares this tidbit of information that the necklace is made from a portal shard, which I find to be very interesting, and I'm so glad they're finally telling us a bit about this necklace. Alec then takes this necklace when they tell him about Valentine contacting her through it, and he basically locks it in the floor like Isabel's necklace was. With Clary in this episode, we see a lot of cute scenes between her and Izzy. We see the parallels between how Clary has a wonderful relationship with her mother, while Izzy really does not, and Maris just treats Izzy horribly. We're shown a really cool scene of Clary getting trained by Alec, and her running off when Alec gets distracted. She ran off to go get that box that her mother would cry over once a year that said JC. Clary just kind of, because she doesn't know what it is, thinks that it might have something to do with the Mortal Cup. But it doesn't. Another thing that happened with Clary in this episode, her and Simon got kidnapped by the werewolves, and yeah, that wasn't very fun for them. Something else really cool in this episode that I really loved was the fact that we were shown Maris Lightwood and how she treats each of her children very differently from each other. She shows a lot of favoritism towards Jace, is very tough on Alec, and is very dismissive of Izzy because of the way Isabel is. Now, let's get on to Jace in this episode. We're shown a scene of him training again. Maris comes up and is all nice to him, gives him a hug, shows Alex some affection as well, but dismisses Izzy, and then starts getting really mad at all of them for all the unsanctioned missions. And yeah, it's not good, and she's not very nice to Clary. We do get mention of Max though, so that's great. Then Maris sends Jace and Izzy to interrogate Meliorn because the Seelie aren't speaking to the Clave. Well, when they arrive and talk to Meliorn, it's because they're in mourning, and he says they're going to choose the winning side. Another thing that happens with Jace in this episode, he gets in another fight with Alec. And I don't know, I'm a little tired of that. I think it's being a little overdone, and I'm kind of tired of seeing him just rip into Alec that way. Let's move on to one of my favorite characters, Simon. So with Simon in this episode, we're shown him outside the Hotel du Moor. Raphael comes up and asks him what he's doing there, and then scares him off because Raphael does not understand what's going on, I don't think, not fully. And we see some scenes in the episode where Simon does this vampy jump over a wall, has like vampire strength, and I like it, but I still kind of think it's a bit soon. When he does that jump over the wall, it's when he and Clary are showing Alec a shortcut up to Clary's loft. And Alec, you can tell, is starting to get very suspicious of Simon. One thing that I really loved in this scene was the awkward moment when Clary and Simon show Alec this tag on the wall. It's a heart, and it says SL plus CF, and they say it was when they were engaged to be married. Alec tells them he doesn't want to know the story, but then they tell him anyway, and I just think that was a really well done scene. Another thing about that scene that was very interesting, Simon now has the sight, and that is another thing that is making Alec very, very, very suspicious, because Simon can see all of the runes on the building. So when Simon breaks the handle off the door and they get into the loft, Simon finds a creaky floorboard, and they find that box with JC on it. Also, Clary finally sees that her room has been torched. I have a feeling when she finally gets her mom back and finds out that her mother torched her room, she's gonna be a bit peeved. One last thing with Simon in this episode, when he is chained upside down to the ceiling in the Jade Wolf Chinese restaurant, he breaks his handcuffs and gets himself down. And then when he finally gets Jace on the phone, Jace tells him to start a fire, and he does, but then he gets trapped and Izzy saves him. And now I basically told y'all what Izzy was up to in this episode. She wasn't very dominant in this episode, except for the scene when she saved Simon and the scene when she got really irritated with Jace for getting mad and yelling at Alec again for losing Clary. Now, let's talk about Alec in this episode. Oh, he has such a hard time in this episode. I feel really bad for him. He is put in charge of watching over Clary and making sure she doesn't step out of line. And he gets distracted when Magnus calls to ask him out for a drink, aka a date, and Clary sneaks off. So when this happens, things just get crazy and I feel really bad for Alec. He even in one scene tries to apologize in a way to Jace for what happened at Magnus's place, and Jace still just does not get what's going on. But Clary does, because when Alec finds Clary, she outs him and says it must be really hard being in love with Jace when he's straight. And then he gets very middle school with her and says, no, you're in love with Jace. And it's an interesting scene because he just doesn't know how to speak about this out in the open, and especially with Clary. Now in this episode, we are actually shown a lot more of Luke. He's still doing detective work to try and find Clary. The werewolves are still trying to find her. And once they kidnap her, he goes and challenges and kills the alpha so that he can save and protect Clary. In this episode, we aren't shown a lot of Valentine, but we are shown him creating a bunch of Forsaken, and it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. At the end of the episode, when Luke saves Clary and the Shadowhunters from the werewolves, basically, he is badly wounded and he has to be taken to Magnus to be healed because only a warlock apparently can cure an alpha's bite. This is when we see the Shadowhunters kind of split off from each other. Alec and Izzy are gonna go to the Institute, and Jace, Clary, and Simon go with Luke to Magnus's. I thought this was a really well done scene and it played out very well. Alright guys, now on to my favorite quotes of the episode. One of my favorite quotes was said by Alec, and one of the reasons it is a favorite of mine is that it was taken directly from the books, and it is, the law is hard, but it is the law. I love that it really blended well with the script and didn't stand out too much to where it was like, oh, here's this quote from the book. Look, you guys, look. No, it was really well done and I liked it. The other quote that I really liked in this episode was when Raphael said to Simon, excuse me, are you insane or just an idiot? I love these scenes between Raphael and Simon. They are just too great and I can't wait for more. After seeing this episode, I have to say it's probably my second favorite after last week's, just because last week's was just so great and this one was very close, and hopefully they just keep getting better and better. But there was one thing that I really didn't like in this episode, and that is the werewolf transformations. I don't like how there's just a flash and they're transformed into a wolf or a human. There's no clothes shredding or gruesome transformation or anything. And I guess maybe it's because of the station it's on, but I feel like it would have been a lot cooler to have an actual transformation instead of just a flash of light and then they're a wolf or a human. I'm partial to gruesome werewolf transformations, but that's just me. I hope y'all enjoyed this recap and review. Continue to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye guys.